Hey, how's it going? Stranger. Just want to make a video today on Emu's Devil Fruit. I figured I was going to want to make a video about this eventually, in my opinion, before his Devil Fruit eventually gets revealed. If he even has one, he might have something completely different. But I wanted to do a video on what I think his fruit is, and in the title, you might see that it might already spoil it, but there's a theory that I saw going around. The person I saw posted originally was a man or a person on Reddit called Joyboy24. Their theory is my theory, or my theory is their theory, and it's what if Emu had the awakened ink fruit? Now, this works perfectly. I've said in my previous videos before, love juxtapositions. This works perfectly with Luffy having his rubber fruit, which is based on like Rubber Hose cartoons, and something that also is very prevalent in cartoons is the inking. So this works perfectly to juxtapose Luffy being, the god of the sun, Nika, and we don't know what Emu might be, but let's say it's Emu, god of the night, but he's dealing with ink. So all you would have to do is just do night sun, rubber ink. It would work perfectly, and its juxtapositions on more than just one level. The first reason I think this theory is actually really prevalent and could be really good is when we're looking at Emu, we could just already be looking at their final design. I know Oda has sometimes made the characters cloaked in shadow sometimes, so we don't see what they quite look like just yet. But it actually works for Emu if he is the Ink Devil because he is already cloaking himself. It's not going to be like something like a Diavolo from JoJo where he's like cloaked in shadow for that entire time just because Araki doesn't want to show what he looks like or doesn't have a design for him yet or anything like that. No, that is just straight Emu. He is just covered in not necessarily darkness but ink, and nobody's able to touch him to see that and to feel what it's covered with, except maybe Sabo might make mention of it, but no one's able to touch him because he's Emu. No one's going to touch the ruler of the world. I really do dig this theory, mainly just because of the whole of that part in general, because it sounds like just the perfect way Oda would mess with us. It sounds like where you have Oda stepping up and being like and having a the final villain you would think would be super serious. And most shonens, the final villain is something fierce, something serious, and you can't really mess with. In Dragon Ball, you have Kid Buu, and you're not messing with Kid Buu, or you're not fucking with Kid Buu. Kid Buu's off top. You have to take him seriously. He is a threat from his power set to everything else. He's a threat. And Naruto, it should have been Madara, but you have Kaguya, who's also a threat. None of her powers there are really jokingly, and nobody's really joking around with Kaguya, except for that one time they used Sexy no Jutsu on her. And then you have with Emu, you could have it be the opposite to where you think it's going to be something really serious, but in true One Piece fashion, the real answer is kind of funny. And that would go into even my theory on what the One Piece is. I think it is something that's going to be relatively pretty funny. Why else would have Roger laughed? I think Emu is going to be someone pretty funny as well. Being able to rewrite history because you have the ink fruit, I think that makes so much sense. Being able to shoot down islands because you have an ink fruit because you mark them down on like an official map or something, that could also make sense. Being able to you could have go so many routes with this, and Oda could go so many routes with this, where having the ink fruit makes sense because Oda says it does, not just because it's a bad idea or he's like giving him plot armor or anything like that, but because it actually makes sense in terms of the story that, oh yeah, Luffy has the rubber fruit, so he could therefore shape anything and do all this stuff, anything he can pretty much imagine with his body. If Emu has the ink fruit, he could do the very same thing. I do like the whole Emu rewriting the history of the world. Even if he did have it, like he did that prior to having the ink fruit, because even from thematically, from a standpoint, that makes sense for him to get that type of fruit. And the more that I talk about this, the more that I think it's already true. It's already written in stone. And speaking of stone, I could also see that Joy Boy, if he was around during the time of Emu and vice versa, that Joy Boy couldn't have written down anything, any type of explanation of what happened, any of his logbooks or anything in ink, because he was fearful that Emu might change it. So he wrote it instead into a poneglyph. He etched it, and Emu has no bearing over the etching in the poneglyphs. Zero. Now, The one thing with this theory where it kind of falls apart for me personally is when we started talking about like the news coups. Because if Emu has the manipulation over ink and can pretty much on a base level mess with ink like that, why does he need somebody who doesn't work for the government and will sometimes post things that aren't the greatest for the government working for him? Why does he need Big News Morgans? You would think he would just do it himself or at least print it out himself. Maybe it might be just because it's Emu, so he doesn't feel the need to want to do that. Emu could be on like some type of Saitama syndrome where it could be I don't want to do this anymore, or I want to be able to find a good fight, or I want to find somebody who can match my intelligence, or a plethora of other reasons. But he's just pretty much waiting for Luffy to be his final challenge or one of his final tests. It seems like Emu most likely is kind of bored. Like if he has been around for 800 years or since the Void Century, what has he been doing? What has he been doing all this time except sitting around being bored? Every now and then you'll get probably a revolution army or a revolutionary type of force, and then he snuffs them out. In the next couple of 100 years, it starts back over again because with a government that corrupt, there's no hiding some facets of it. And him being able to manipulate that, it seems perfect to me. What would the perfect manipulator want? What power would they want? And of course, it's the power to manipulate anything. Our words carry a lot of weight, but most of the time, the words aren't going to be good enough to carry the story. You need somebody to be able to write it down. And I think Emu knows that. The D's might be a representation of that, where they're on the vocal reception of that. The D's are a showing of this is through our word. This is what the D is. The D I could see Oda never revealing what the D means, only that they're enemies to God, and that's the one thing we heard from. That's the one for sure thing we've heard. This could be just a large game of telephone. Meanwhile, with the written history, that could also not be reliable because it's written and anybody can go in there and change it, such as Eam. So I could see Oda approaching this from so many avenues. Now, I do want to acknowledge that I don't think he's. I think he has to have a devil fruit. Just off top, I can't see any other method or any other route Oda could go with where he wouldn't have a devil fruit. Of course, he would have really good hockey. I mean, it's Eam. I was thinking he would have such good Conqueror's hockey, it could maybe put even Sabo down to his knee. But considering Sabo is pretty strong, that might be a little too strong if he was able to put Sabo down to one knee. If Eam has anything to fear of Luffy, and this is another thing. When we see Eam in one of the pictures, we see he is stabbed a picture of, I might be wrong here, but I know it was Luffy and Blackbeard were stabbed, and I believe it was Shirahoshi. Vivi he was looking at. Now, Shirahoshi might be a reincarnate of the original Poseidon. So he just automatically hates her off the top. He hates Luffy because he has the opposite fruit to him, and he poses a challenge to him. So if Emu realizes, oh, the only other fruit that can manipulate things are the rubber fruit, and I have the ink fruit, of course he's gonna hate what the only thing that could stop him. And I could see that Blackbeard having the Yami Yami no Mi could also be potentially a threat, because if the Yami Yami no Mi, and this is I haven't heard this from anybody else, but I don't doubt that this is a completely inaccurate. The Yami Yami no Mi might just be Eam's power desired, if that makes sense. Vegapunk mentioned that his theory for devil fruits, which mind you still is a theory, it is the theory from the world's smartest man in the universe of One Piece, but nonetheless it is still a theory that devil fruits are the will of the people. So somebody, was like, oh, I want to be a lion so bad, or better yet, I want to be a giraffe so bad. It would probably be really cool. What would happen if we were giraffes? And you get Kaku's fruit. I'm so sorry for yawning, man. But then you get Kaku's fruit. And Kaku's fruit from that breeds, if I assume you like the fruit that you get even stronger with the fruit. It tends to lend credence to the strong devil fruit users that we usually see usually like their fruit. Now with Kaido and Big Mom, they don't really ever outwardly say that, oh, I love my fruit. But with Kaku, he should not have gotten as far as he has gotten. Like, he's gotten really far. Same thing with, like, Katakuri has the Mochi Mochi no Mi. Seems like Katakuri really likes his fruit, especially if he's able to make anything into mochi. Seems like he really loves his fruit. To me, that's such a dope idea. That's a really cool idea that Oda seems to be playing around with even to this day. I don't think there's any more I think I could really touch on as far as his eyes or anything, because I think that's just something Oda wants to go over. So for instance, Mihawk has the same eyes and there's one other person that has the same eyes. I don't think that means anything bad, like Mihawk is related to Im in some way. I just think that's Oda's way of drawing like a character being serious and attentive. I 100% think those eyes will change once Luffy starts fighting him. 100%. I could see if Kaido and Luffy was supposed to be Tom and Jerry. I could see that Luffy versus Im probably being along the lines of more SpongeBob-esque humor, if that makes sense. So stuff like close-ups and things. So we'll probably have a defined version of Im and what he like kind of looks like definitely before he got the fruit. But I could also see that making sense, because if you say the ink fruit, that could mean so many things as far as other than zone. It could be a Paramecia Logia mix where you think it's a Paramecia, but it's really a Logia, and that could be just as juxtaposed by Luffy's you think it's a Paramecia, but it's really a zone. And if we were to bring in Blackbeard into this equation, because I'm thinking Blackbeard, it's a trinity with Imu at the top representing true order, Luffy and Blackbeard at the bottom, where Luffy represents true freedom in the safest sense of freedom, and Blackbeard represents true freedom in the worst, like anarchist, just absolute everything gung-ho has gone crazy sense of freedom. So if Luffy has a Paramecia or a zone that is thought to be a Paramecia, and Imu has a Paramecia that is, or a Logia that is thought to be a Paramecia, I could see Blackbeard having all three, just because the way his body works. The only thing we've heard is Blackbeard's body works weird. I don't think it works weird. I just think he was raised in a weirder environment. So if we look at Blackbeard on the SBS, when he was a kid, he was obviously struggling. And I remember Buggy saying something along the lines of Blackbeard only needs to sleep for like 3 minutes. But that goes on to a whole other thing. I'll make a video on that later. I genuinely think Blackbeard is I think he's an octopus zone. Preferably, if it's not octopus, it's squid. It's probably the Kraken, because I only think squids and octopuses need to sleep for like a couple minutes, and then they're completely rejuvenated. As well as them having like 3 hearts. Blackbeard, I think, also has 3 hearts, where he has 3 people he could represent on each of those hearts. But yeah, I don't think this theory can necessarily go anywhere else other than Imu being ink. I mean, we could talk about the final battle, but that just amounts to Luffy and Imu completely changing the area around it, almost until it is just a rubber hose cartoon, and you have Luffy in black and white on the anime. The manga is already black and white, but you have Luffy in black and white fighting this big ol' splotch. It sounds like Oda's not. I don't know why Oda. He's a madman. I don't know why he thought to make one of the final villains. Definitely one of the final villains. It's still up there between him and Blackbeard, but definitely one of the final villains. Why would you make him completely black? That's one thing Araki didn't really. Not Araki, my bad. Toriyama with Dragon Ball. If you didn't know, the reason Toriyama did Super Saiyan was because he was so tired of shading in Goku's hair with black. So it sounds like Araki's in it to win it, at least with this drawing a completely just black villain, just completely. But yeah, anyway, I think that's gonna be the video. I just want to make a little short one today, try to keep up with my upload schedule. This is still relatively new to me, but hopefully you guys have been liking the videos. I can't really. I'll probably have a video out. I'm making a Trails tier list video. Because I mentioned Trails in the other video. and I really kind of want to be working on Trails a little bit more too. I really love that series. I love One Piece. I love Persona, and I love a couple other things that I want to make videos on. But anyway, yeah, if we see that Emu had the awakened ink fruit, hopefully Joyboy24 called it. I can't take credit for that. Maybe he can. I hope he can. And yeah, anyway, you guys, that's gonna be the video. I'm gonna be heading off. You guys have a good one, and yeah, keep living.